Hi, folks, and welcome to Sparkles with Better Mental Health again. This is Dr. Christine Sauer, and today I'm here with Kerry Harling, the Holistic Highway. Wow, Kerry, what a name!
Thank you.
Now, the Holistic Highway is very interesting because most people wouldn't call it a highway. I know you are globally recognized in the field of integrative medicine, Ayurveda, and you want to raise awareness for the need of change in contemporary medicine that you say. And I love that because I work on the same area. We need to raise awareness that there's more to medicine than just fixing symptoms. And most of the practitioners that work in that area have a story. So let's start with, how did you become the person you are today, and why did you go that way?
Well, Dr. Christine, that is such a big question, but you are absolutely right. Each one of us has our own story. And I spent many, many years being chronically sick and chronically fatigued. And this always surprises people when I tell them that, considering what I do now. Um, I had just come out of an abusive relationship, was starting off again, so had left my marriage as a single parent with a 3-year-old son and decided I was going to go back to school and make something of myself. And I thought all my troubles were behind me. So I get to my new state where I'm going to go to school and everything seems great. And then, boom, my health goes downhill and I get sick. But, I don't sleep very well. My digestion starts playing up. I'm so tired all the time. So I do what we all do. I go visit the doctor and say, hey, I'm having these symptoms. What's wrong? And they start running tests. Do you have Lyme disease? Do you have fibromyalgia? Let's test you for this. Let's test you for Epstein-Barr. Let's have a look at your iron content, all the reasons. So I go through a myriad of tests. And each time there comes back a result, and I get medication for that particular, symptom. And I would take the medication, and things were getting worse. Things were not getting better. I just started school. I was in an intensive program. I was a single mum to a 3-year-old, and it would break my heart when he would turn around to me and say, "Mom, let's play baseball," or can we go to the park? And I would have to work out, if I played baseball with my son one day, I would not be able to do the laundry the next. Or if I did the dishes that day and the laundry all in one day, then I'd be out for the count for 2 days. So things got worse and worse and worse. Things didn't get better at all. And I went from physician to physician to physician. And each one of those physicians gave me the best knowledge and experience that they had from their toolbox, and it tended to be medication. So I'm still working in school. I'm still trying to do everything. Then I develop chemical sensitivities. Then I get brain fog. I can't think right, but I'm in school, so I'm supposed to think right. And I don't know what's going on. I just know things aren't getting better. At that time, the only thing that was helping with all my joint pain was when I went to restorative yoga. And at yoga, somebody said to me, "You need to see an Ayurveda practitioner." And I thought, I'd never heard of this word Ayurveda. I couldn't pronounce it. I think it had something to do with Hinduism. I probably had to change religions to do it. Maybe I had to speak a different language, and I'm sure they ate weird food. So I was not interested in this thing called Ayurveda at all. So, but I did feel better after doing yoga. So I ignored the whole Ayurveda piece and just sort of stayed with restorative yoga. And at that time, I went to see an MD who was also an alternative practitioner. And he turned around to me and he said, "You know what, Kerry? Let's do a heavy metals test." And he did, and my mercury results were out off the charts. I had such high mercury toxicity that was the problem. And I felt wonderful. I felt elated. Finally, we had a diagnosis. This meant we could fix it, right? Because if we knew we had a mercury toxicity, then all we had to do was remove the mercury. So I went for chelation therapy, which is where they remove the mercury out of the body. And then I had to do a different therapy for trying to remove the mercury out of the brain. And the question was, well, where did you get all this mercury from? So they asked me if I ate a lot of fish. Well, I'm English, so we're an island. So yeah, we did eat a lot of fish. Then they asked me, did I live next to any huge manufacturing places? And then they asked me if I ever lived next to a hat making factory. Because when you make hats, in the felting process of making a hat, you actually add mercury. And that's where that phrase, as mad of a, you're as mad as a hatter, comes from. It's from mercury affecting the brain. Nobody could find out where it all came from. And I did what we all did, had the mercury amalgams, had amalgams removed from my teeth, mercury from everywhere I could think of. 5 years later, and that's how long it took 5 years to remove all the mercury. I was still not feeling better. There was no mercury in my system, but I didn't feel particularly better. I was still tired. I was still not sleeping well. I still had incredible joint pain. I still had brain fog. So at that point, somebody said to me again, why don't you see an Ayurveda practitioner? So at this point, I'm desperate. So I go to see this Ayurveda practitioner. She didn't have me eat funny foods. She spoke to me in English, so I felt quite safe. And she turned around to me and said, well, what had happened was all the mercury being removed from the system had left me so depleted. The very chemicals that they had used to remove the mercury had actually caused a lot of problems. So she put me on an Ayurveda cleanse, which is detoxifying, yes, but then there was a lot of rejuvenation as well. And Dr. Christine, after just a couple of weeks, I started feeling better. I just had a little bit more energy. After a month or 6 weeks, I noticed I was sleeping better. And then after a couple of months, I noticed, oh, I don't feel depressed. I feel I can think clearly. So I just started getting better and better and better. So at that time, I thought, hey, if something, I got to look into this because this is pretty phenomenal. So that's what got me onto the path of Ayurveda. And then I started studying it. And then I went to India and then I studied under different people. And then, sort of went more integrative, recognizing that to bring Ayurveda into the modern world, we have to embrace the best of Eastern medicine, which says it needs to be personalized and we can't just blindly medicate symptoms. But we need to use Western technology too. And there's some very good things in Western technology, like genetics, for example. So I combine that together in a very unique program of using the best of West and East for my clients. And that makes such a difference in their health. And for some of my clients, they feel so much better for the first time in years. So that's what I do now, and that's how I got to be here. And hopefully that answers that question a little bit.
A little bit. It's actually a great story because I love hearing that what I learned from Dale Bredesen is right. The three main causes of illness: inflammation, toxicity, nutrient deficiency. You had all three, and you got healed of all three, and now you feel better. It's amazing. And I firmly, I come from Germany. We have a long tradition. I was told my grandmother was an herbal wisdom, an herbal healer, right? And over the centuries, the ancient healers of whatever traditions, they knew so much. And then when so-called science came along, we threw it all out for penicillin. I mean, nothing against penicillin, it's great, but it's not the only thing. So I truly love that you say we need to combine it because that's what I believe too. And you're right. We need to do that. How do we do that?
What I love actually, Dr. Christine, is so I look through the lens of Ayurveda, and it is amazing that 5,000 years ago, people studied and realized that we could change health outcomes based on diet and lifestyle, and that everybody was unique. Today, in the field of epigenetics, which is my field of research, we now know we can change our genes based on diet and lifestyle. At one time, we thought genes were fixed, and if you had this genetic predisposition, it was going to play out, and that was it. You couldn't change it. We know we can switch genes on and off. And I think it's amazing that 5,000 years ago, Ayurveda did not have the language of genetics, but it knew that each one of us was unique and that we could change our outcomes based on diet and lifestyle. So very simple, but we've just repackaged it under epigenetics, or we repackage it under circadian medicine, which means we live according to the seasons. This is all things that Eastern medicine already espouses. So it is fascinating. We've just repackaged it and called it something
Full
different in
circle in a
today's
way,
world.
right? The Chinese did it, the Ayurvedans did it, the old Egyptians even had a better idea of what it was. Well, not everything, but some. The Chinese had a very elaborate method too. And I talked to several practitioners of both sides, and they said they influenced each other big time. So one grew out of
Yeah,
the other. And I find that very interesting because they were not isolated even 5,000 years ago. People
yeah,
travel just slow. Maybe that's a good thing.
yeah,
You
yes.
think about the stress of the modern age that our technology puts on many people.
It's funny. I went up to Kripalu. I don't know whether you know
Ah, yeah,
Kripalu. It's a
yeah.
big yoga and Ayurveda center. That's where I started my training. And I did a
Me too. I'm a Tai
functional,
Chi. I love Tai Chi. I do Tai Chi, and he does it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to one of the courses up there and it was how to move functionally. And it was just a fun course to
Yeah.
do. And what he said was in our today's world, with the modern technology that we have, we don't even physically do the thing. So, for example, backup cameras in your car. So we no longer twist in the car to turn around to look behind us. We now use a backup camera. So there's so many things that our technology, which helps us, has actually stopped us physically moving a lot. So that's on the physical level.
Be remote, right? Keeps us sitting on the couch instead of getting
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
channel.
And then access to information. We have so much access to so much information. We believe, and it just goes faster and faster and faster. And I see this with kids. I have kids younger and younger and younger coming to me with high anxiety and or depression, but normally anxiety. And you have to look at what's going on in our world that our youngest, most vulnerable generation, our children, are having so many problems with things like ADD and anxiety. And I think a lot of it is our culture. Our world is so fast paced, so bombarding through the senses. And anything that we take in through the senses is nutrition. It's not just what we eat, it's what we hear, what we speak, what we taste, what we touch. This is all nourishing to the body. So if all we're doing is bombarding our young generation, they get overstimulated. They don't learn the very things to calm that central nervous system. We don't take them out in nature anymore in quite the same way as they used to. So there's no opportunity to relax that central nervous system. So overstimulation, and then you get a diagnosis of ADD. It's a very real diagnosis. I absolutely believe it. I have a nephew that was diagnosed with it and he was off the wall, but it doesn't have to be that way. And it's not just that. Every one of us, how many times do we take time out just for ourselves? How many times do we walk in nature just to calm that central nervous system? So, yeah, it's a tough world to live in right now.
So if I hear you right, you're saying what's missing is a balance between engaging, call it stressful activity, and a calming or relaxation
Yeah.
activity. And our nervous system is made to keep us in balance. And if it's always faster, 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 at some point I say something, and the hamster wheel of time is running faster and people falling out right and left. It's not a good thing.
No, it creates stress on our bodies, and depending on who you are or in what Ayurveda we call your dosha, your metabolic type, that stress is going to cause your body to break down in its own unique way. So stress in me might create migraines, for example. Stress in you might create, stomach disorders. Stress in somebody else creates inflammation. But if we don't deal with that stressor, eventually that's going to create disease. So imbalance creates stress, stress creates inflammation, inflammation creates disease. That we know. Modern medicine also knows inflammation creates disease.
Absolutely. It's one of the main causes for many diseases.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of what we could call the perfect storm of disease.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we have a nation that's very sick. Yes, the Western world, not just this nation I'm in, but America. But yes.
Western world generally. I live in Canada, same thing. Because they eat the same, they stress the same, and they eat the same sad diet now. Standard American diet is very sad. It makes people sad because they don't absorb the right nutrients anymore. So I love,
And Dr. Christine, it's not always people's problems. I mean, a lot of people come to me and we start with nutrition because that's certainly a great place to start. It is important. And I'll say to people, well, we need to eat seasonally, but in today's world, we don't even know what's in season anymore.
yeah,
So unless you're a farmer or you have a backyard garden, you don't know that strawberries only come out in June or July. If you can go down to the grocery store and you can pick
Bobby,
up, yeah,
that's
you can pick them up 365 days in a year. So it's not necessarily anybody's fault. We've become so far removed from our food source, we don't even know what's in season anymore.
I couldn't agree more. Now I know you were on TV, ABC, I think featured you. You've written a book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got approached by a publishing company asking me if I would write a book about a cleanse because it was such a pivotal moment for me to get onto that sort of path to wellness or the highway to wellness, which is where the holistic highway comes in. It's the road to health. So they approached me and asked me to write the 25-day Ayurveda cleanse. And cleanses are very personal, but it was a way to sort of bring the benefits of a cleanse. And I almost shouldn't say the word cleanse because cleansing doesn't bring up anything nice in most people's mind. A cleanse sort of makes you think of you're going to starve, you're going to purge, you're probably going to have diarrhea. So nobody likes the idea of a cleanse. But an Ayurveda cleanse really is a digestive reset. And there's a lot of rejuvenation in an Ayurveda cleanse. And we traditionally do these in spring and fall at the change of the seasons. This is the major time to do it. The only other time we'll cleanse is if there's evidence of toxins which are creating inflammation. So they asked me to write this book. So I did. It took me about 4 or 5 months to write it. It was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of hard work. I had no idea how much hard work it would be. And I thought I could write, but when you actually start putting it out, it's like, no, I'm not very good at this. So I had to learn a lot. Um, Created all the recipes in it. They had a photographer who she was wonderful. She lived in Chicago. So she took all my recipes and she made every single one of them so that she could photograph them. And I remember saying to her one time, do you live by yourself or do you have a family? Because you're making all this food. She goes, no, I live by myself, but my neighbors absolutely love me right now because she's making all this Ayurveda food and they're all eating it. So I had a lot of fun with the book, but then afterwards, then the publisher wanted me to go on a book tour. And part of that was the interview with ABC, where they wanted to know about cleansing and what an Ayurveda cleanse was. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I love it when the holistic method, the holistic highway, as you're calling, is featured more. So if someone is listening to us now and they say, wow, Kerry, she makes so much sense that I want that. How can I contact her? How can they contact you?
Yeah, so what I do for anybody, no obligation at all, is just chat with me on a health strategy call. We'll take about 30 minutes, just chat, find out what's going on, what your health challenges are, what your health goals are, and see if I can even help. Because in all fairness, Dr. Christine, I can't always help everybody. But I do have a lot of resources. So if I can't help somebody, I can certainly give them to, sort of give some resources or referrals out to somebody that can. So probably the best way to communicate with me is through my website, The Holistic Highway. Don't forget the in The Holistic Highway, otherwise you go to somebody else. And then you'll see that every page on my website has book a health strategy call. Click on that, it'll take you to a calendar, find a time that works for you, and then you'll come to me, we'll do a Zoom call and just chat. As I say, no obligation. I don't, it's very important that I really understand what's going on with you before we ever sort of work together. But I can certainly then give some tips and ideas of things that can help. So that's probably the easiest way. So www.theholistichighway.com.
That's wonderful, Kerry, and I make sure that's underneath the video too, so it's
Thank you.
easy to put into the browser when they listen to the replay and see the video or whatever. I thank you very much for coming on that podcast, and I hope you have much success in healing more people. The more holistic wellness people we have spreading the message, the more goodness will arrive in the world. I firmly believe that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christine. Thank you for what you do too.
Thank you. And this was another episode of the show Sparkles for Better Mental Health. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe, click that little bell button so you don't miss the next episode. Take care.